Community Matters.
Hello, this is Richard Acritelli here on the Fog of War and Humanity on HMTV. To the left of me is my special guest, Marcelle Leis. She spoke in great detail about her, opening times in the military, coming from Belmore, Long Island, and her time in Kuwait, and coming home after one of the first deployments in this country, directly after 9/11. Marcelle, you hold a very important job today. What would that job be that you do on a regular basis?
And thank you for continuing the conversation. As I started to consider departing from military service, I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And you really, honestly, as a service member, you need to find another mission and another sense of purpose. So I was actually introduced to the Joseph Dwyer Veterans Peer Support Project in late 2012, early 2013. And it was exactly the same month that I was retiring from my 24 years in the Air National Guard that I was introduced to this pilot program, the startup program. And that really kind of launched where I am now. Through the last decade that I was working post-military service, I learned a lot about veteran services and community resources, and the Suffolk County Veterans Service Agency, who oversaw the funding for the Joseph Dwyer Project, the peer-to-peer program that I was a part of, really brought me to where I am now, and that is working as the Director of Veteran Services for Suffolk County.
So you're really connected to a lot of local that are also national initiatives, right?
Yes.
You think about your military service on the local, state, and like federal levels of government, your experiences going overseas, okay?
Right.
Being here on Long Island and doing all the things in terms of your civilian side and military side. So now Joseph Dwyer, he was a local kid, right? Goes over to Iraq, one of the first soldiers over there during the second Gulf War, right? During the global war on terror. And what's the importance of the peer-to-peer program?
The peer-to-peer program, first of all, peers in any population, a peer assisting another peer, it's an evidence-based practice. And so what does that mean? It means that, through the research, we've known that there's a validity in the relationship between, especially when you talk about service members and veterans, people that have walked in their shoes. And metaphorically, not literally, we don't all have the same experiences while we're in the military, but we understand that cultural foundation from the first day of basic training in every branch of service. We all go through it. We talked about it earlier. And so having that lived experience and understanding the language of the culture that we come from is so important to getting somebody that might be reluctant to seek help. Because again, we are helping professionals. We're the first responders. We're the ones, and Joe Dwyer is a prime example.
So now, what condition does Dwyer suffer? Did he suffer from?
He openly struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. And at the time when he was struggling, there weren't peer programs like there are today, and there weren't people that you could get the conversation going and find out what the resources were. It was a very closeted kind of a thing. And so he, like so many of them, self-medicated. We always share openly that Joe did not take his life. He did not want to die, but he was medicating the pain of the trauma of what he saw while he was deployed.
And he was a peaceful man too. They always...
Yeah, he was a combat medic.
Yeah.
He was there to save lives, not take lives. But the trauma is so extreme that people come back and they struggle, and there's different ways that they cope. And this was an unfortunate, an unhealthy way of coping.
With Dwyer, right, those guys had to keep on going. They had virtually no rest. They were in the field, right? It was an inhalant, right? The spray, and it was... Yeah.
So it was very...
You kind of have armed forces members doing things that they're not accustomed to doing, and...
Right.
And they kind of
Well, it's also the extreme conditions. Again, I did not see combat. I was not in that arena, but obviously I've seen and heard through the stories of the people that we serve and the trauma and the horrific things that they've seen. The way the war is fought has changed so much because of the landscape of the arena.
Sure.
The combat operations that you're going to be exposed to more. Working with the guys at the 106 in security forces, they did what they called outside the wire missions. They saw a lot of stuff out there, and the way that our enemy fights.
Yeah, with the UXOs and,
right. and
explosives and being amongst the civilians.
And they do not believe in a fair fight, Geneva Convention and all that. They'll use civilians, they'll use women and children
As shields
or plant explosive devices on them.
And a lot of those armed forces members did not have the technology that later on came out, right? I mean, some of them were taking steel out of dumps in terms of to secure their vehicles.
Right, right. So those are the conditions that our service members were seeing in the combat theater of operations. So imagine coming home and having to turn that off, and
with virtually no services.
With no services, and the thing that really triggered the inception of the Dwyer Project here on Long Island or in the state of New York was the alarming rate of suicide among the veterans population. They put a national number that it's 22 a day. Nationwide, 22 veterans take their lives because of whatever trauma they've experienced. They cannot cope with it. And that number is just staggering. We don't put a number on. We always say one is one too many. We also know that the number of 22 a day isn't a realistic number because it doesn't count all the different methods, a car, a high-speed car crash. They're really looking at the weapons, people using, a gun or somebody using medications, self-medicating or intentionally overdosing. Those are the ones that they're really looking at. But there's more out there. So having that understanding of you've served, I've served, I'm now talking about what I experienced, and I'm getting it out in a non-clinical environment.
One of the first things that you said in the first episode was, my father was in the Vietnam War era, but people didn't really say anything.
Right.
Those guys and women, when they came home, don't say anything.
Right.
Go get a job, go to college if you can.
Right.
White picket fence.
Right.
But don't say a word.
Just put it on a shelf, stuff it.
Here at the museum over the years ago, they would have liberators of concentration camps here. Mm-hmm. And here you have the double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. These guys are fighting, right, across Europe. They're young, and then they liberate concentration camps when they think all is done, right, at the very end. And there was no services. Right. It was, right, you were told, don't go talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. That's not a masculine thing to do, right? And so on. And so you're at the forefront of kind of ensuring that these services are there.
We're trying to shift the mindset that asking for help is a sign of strength and not a sign of weakness. I say that all the time because it's true. When you have somebody that has served, that has gone through those experiences and then is coming home and able to model healthy behaviors because they sought help, that's huge. Because now you see this other service member and saying, I trust this guy or gal, and I see that they've been able to overcome the circumstances in the reintegration process, whether it's recently coming back from military service or 50 years ago with Vietnam. And you mentioned before, we didn't talk about the Vietnam War. We have
very little was said.
We have the largest subpopulation in our nation and here in our communities of veterans is the Vietnam veteran, whether you were in country or not. But most of them in country, you were exposed to, again, traumatic events, to Agent Orange, to other toxins. They came back.
To being in the jungle.
Right, being in the jungle.
And being on combat duty a lot longer than the previous wars.
Right. Long sustained, 2 years or more, of a sustained conflict in the battle zone. You've got the ones that have been exposed to now with
and then coming home, where it was no different than any other war. They were called upon to go into uniform, to fight for the country. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't choose a time or place, right? And they were treated very poorly.
Yes.
And that's why I think the American Legions, the Veterans Posts, because now that these guys are a little bit older, they kind of talk to each other,
They
and there's
are.
a sense of camaraderie.
Right, and you and I both know a huge compliment of Vietnam veterans like Joe.
Yeah.
Joe Cognitori and a lot of the folks that are at the VFW there in Rocky Point. A lot of the VFWs all over Nassau and Suffolk County. They are the ones that I'm talking about when I talk about modeling healthy behaviors.
And you see this every day, right, at your job?
I see it every day. And it's unfortunate that they came home and they didn't get the services, but now they're at an age and stage of life where they are looking for the services. And we're seeing a lot more of them come in. And finally, sometimes they even break down. I've had Vietnam veterans come in and speak about the atrocities that they saw, things that they had to do while they were in country for the first time in over 5 decades.
Yeah.
First time to a total stranger. But because I served and you served, they felt comfortable enough to finally release it. But then there needs to be the handoff.
Yeah, you get guys like a Richie Kitson who ends up fighting local, state, federal for more money, more support, more assistance.
Right. It's those folks that have the lived experience like Richie, like Joe, and so many others that are advocating for the funds at the federal, state, and local level. It's my job as the Veteran Service Agency Director is to really kind of push that needle in the right direction with the help of the community, those folks that are out there doing that, and bringing the message to our local officials of what the issues are and what the needs are of the veteran population in their communities, the places that they are serving. It's their constituents that need the assistance.
Now, you serve a huge job because of where we live. You mentioned it before in terms of Nassau and Suffolk County,
Right.
within New York State, and then within the nation as well.
Right.
So you're kind of getting the word out there to the veterans, like, this is a good thing. Come down and see us. Here's some information for you. If you need to speak with somebody, we could help you. We could push you in that direction. Right. So are you seeing more of an openness with the global war on terror veterans who went to Iraq and Afghanistan and had done various things, right? Are you seeing more of an openness for them coming out?
To seek help?
To seek help?
We're not seeing that.
You're not seeing that?
We're not seeing that. I think that also has a lot to do with their age and stage of life. I think when
they're working more
they're
now.
working more. They have young families,
homes, right?
Right. As long as they know that the services are there, when they're ready, they'll come.
Have you seen maybe a slight increase over the last couple of years, or it's just pretty low?
I think what we're seeing in Suffolk County is more of the Vietnam veterans coming out for services. Not as, I mean, we do have the post 9/11 OAF, OEF veterans that are coming in. But if I had to do, we do monthly stats, I would say we're seeing more Vietnam veterans.
The Vietnam is interesting because it's like history's repeating itself. World War II veterans never said anything to their own kids. They most likely said something to their grandchildren. It like skipped a generation.
Right.
And then, I knew men that were prisoners of war from Nassau and Suffolk County, and they had these red jackets, similar to the jacket that you're wearing, right? And they had their cap, and they wear their shirt and tie with the red vests, and they would meet at Northport. And they had one of those old red buildings that was up there. It was mostly out of brick, right? And they'd have cake and coffee with their wives, but they would have the meeting there.
Okay.
And they would talk about like some of their experiences, and then getting out and talking in libraries and schools, and putting wreaths down like in Brooklyn, where like the first hell ships from the Revolutionary War.
Right.
So they would actually go down there as prisoners of war and do that sort of thing. And they always said they didn't say a word afterwards. Part of it was they were too busy, they were having families, they were doing this, and maybe being busy was good, where it wasn't on top of them all the time. It kept their mind going. Right.
But again, I want to go to the cultural piece. We come home and we serve, and we want to protect our families, so we don't talk about it. And that's another valid point, is that the educational piece in the community's got to be families.
To some of the veterans, is that a sign of weakness if they talk about it too much, do you think?
I think it's a protective factor.
Protective?
Yeah, it's a protective factor that they don't want to let them know what they saw. They want to keep it away from them.
Now, what are ways that you guys are trying to figure out that you might have already carried out, right? in terms of trying to get some of the veterans in, where you're, maybe 1 month you see a couple more come in or a couple more phone calls? Is there things that you do online or newsletters or?
It's our community engagement. That's really where we're seeing the biggest result, is getting out into the communities.
Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground. And I'm not just talking about the stand downs and things like that where the veterans come to. I'm talking about going through our public library system and doing presentations, talking to higher echelon companies like PSE&G. We did a community cultural presentation. We've gone to other organizations through the county that have people they serve, clients that they serve that might be veterans. Let's give them the information so that they know not only how to engage that person, but where the handoff is for the resources that will get them the help that they need.
It's a daunting, right? It's a daunting task.
It is. It is. But it's a rewarding. The results are rewarding when you see somebody that's had a breakthrough. When you see somebody that's finally going for the clinical care that they need, and then they're working with us to work on their VA compensation claim, and they're finally getting it. Their entitlements are there. They don't want to take it from their buddy. They say, well, I didn't want to put in for a benefit because I don't want the money. I want it to go to somebody else. That's a misconception. If you go and you enroll in the VA, and if you go and you put a claim in for a VA compensation, you're actually bringing more federal dollars into our local communities, which is actually helping your buddy.
Is it more user-friendly now? Because now, it's tough. We're talking, but a lot of times now everything's online, or you have to call a number and it's automated. Is it a little bit easier for the older veteran that doesn't necessarily like being on the phone or the computer?
Well, I'll speak for the Veterans Service Agency in Suffolk County, because we understand that maybe they're not technologically savvy. They don't know how to use a QR code. Every flyer we put on everywhere always says, scan the QR code and register. We know they can't do that. We will work with them, on the phone, hands on, and help them go through
walk through the steps.
Walk them through the steps of the process.
Are you seeing that the veterans now? I know a couple of years ago there was a problem with the VA where it was tough. People were calling these 1-800 numbers. They couldn't get anybody. They get hung up on. They couldn't get an answer. And I know it was a couple of years back that they tried to kind of streamline it a little bit, make things easier.
Right.
Has the VA gotten a little bit better?
I know that the leadership, I can speak again for the Northport VA, they are addressing those issues. The VA as a whole system, I can't really speak on, but my own personal experience has been as they have improved the process.
Is that where you work out of, or do you work out of HOPOG?
We work out of HOPOG.
Out of HOPOG
right. The
itself.
VA is the federal benefit and the federal program. Suffolk County Veterans Services Agency works directly for the Suffolk County Executive.
When you look at the VA in Northport, that's got to be one of the larger organizations around here, right? I would think.
It is one of the larger systems. But we also have the VA, they have the what they call CBOCs, the community-based outpatient clinics. So you've got Nassau County, you've got the one in East Meadow. In Suffolk County, we work side by side with the folks in Riverhead. Patchogue has
Where's the
one
clinic in East Meadow? Is that at the medical center there?
It's by the medical center. And my Nassau County Veteran Service Agency Director, Ralph Esposito, they're co-located around that area, so they do a lot of cross-referral. With us, it's Suffolk County and mostly the Riverhead office and the Riverhead Clinic.
Now, when you look at the veteran services, you have a lot of different avenues, right? A lot of different things that you're concerned about, right? Now with the Vietnam veterans, with Agent Orange and right, the claims for that.
Right. Well, the PACT Act through the VA opened that up a lot, and that really focused on some what they call presumptive conditions as a result of exposure to toxins like the burn pits in the desert in the Gulf region, and of course the Agent Orange and the other toxins during Vietnam. So those exposures can lead to now especially life-threatening illnesses, and again getting the word out to the veterans. You got a veteran that has hypertension or diabetes or something that is commonly diagnosed as tinnitus, so they have a hearing loss. They don't know that was attributed to their service. Come in and just explore what your opportunities are as far as benefits, and see maybe. And if they don't want to do it for them, do it for your family. because that goes into benefits later in life and aid in attendance and whether or not, there's a death gratuity. All those things come into play down the line. So you're helping your family and not just yourself.
Let's look at the Agent Orange, right? That's kind of out on the news a little bit more. You got more of the Vietnam veterans, right?
Right.
Has the paperwork gotten a little bit better with that, where it can kind of, because these men are getting, and women are getting older, has it gotten a little bit better through the VA? Or?
Well, that's what my veteran service officers, that's what they do. They take the complication out of it. They're the ones that file the benefit claims on behalf of the veteran.
It's like their packet, right?
It's right, their packet. The veteran has some work to do. The family has some work to do as far as getting the diagnoses of the conditions, the presumptive conditions that they're going to put in for. But at the end of the day, it's the veteran service officer that's going to walk you through that process. They're going to be submitting the application to the VA for eventually an appointment to have a CMP so that they can be evaluated by a rater, obviously by a medical professional, and then a rater to determine what your compensation could possibly be.
And again, you're kind of like on the front lines of something that's extremely important, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a mission that has to keep on going.
Yeah. I mean, we've had veterans that have come in that are, at a very low income, and they're not doing it for the income. They're doing it just to have the benefit and to ensure that medically, if something happens down the line, the VA will be responsible for them. But we've had veterans that have come and said, that extra $500 a month in the compensation check that they get is helping them stay independently living and keeping their heads above water. And they earn that. They deserve it.
I mean, now, what do they say? Now it's time for them to make a withdrawal, that sort of thing, right? The deposit is always service, and the withdrawal is what the government can do to help out.
Right.
And so, all right, Marcelle Leis, thank you very much for coming down here to the Fog of War and Humanity here on HMTV. 3 great episodes. Hopefully we can get some of your fellow workers down here from the Veteran Service Office from Suffolk County, and it'd be great to talk to them. And thank you.
Rich.
Very, very, very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was great having you.